So Susan, do you want me to start or do you want to just jump in?
Let's just jump in.
Okay.
I think this is our third public policy power hour of the year, and this is a new platform that Cindy and I and the leadership and the public policy committee wanted to embrace this year, just to give some focus to area organizations, very much, I think, shared stakeholders in the region's overall health and economy. And very clearly, transit is a big part of what we all do every single day. Housing development, housing sales, walkable communities, rider friendly, get people to and from their jobs efficiently. It very much is all interconnected. And we see that through local comprehensive plans, through legislation that we follow and track and work on at the General Assembly. So we're thrilled today to have Zach Trogdon, the executive director of the Williamsburg Area Transit Authority, be our special guest for the June edition of the Public Policy Power Hour. You all may have missed a few minutes ago that I'd said to Cindy and to Zach that I've had the pleasure of knowing Zach for several years because he served as the county administrator in Charles City County when my husband served as the superintendent of schools for Charles City County. So they did some great things for the little community right down the road. And it's really nice that Zach's with us today, and I appreciate his time. Just so you'll have a sense of his background, Zach was appointed the executive director of the Williamsburg Area Transit Authority, and we'll just call it WATA. That's what it's on the buses. That's what it's known as. We'll just call it WATA. It's a lot easier to say as well. He's been there now. I can't believe this. He's been in that position for 4 years. Zach, that's been a really fast 4 years.
Yes, absolutely.
Very, very fast. So through his work at WATA, and he's going to give a lot of, I think, insight on what WATA does and what its mission is and how it connects with the broader transit system in the region. But they operate a number of bus routes, and we've all seen their buses through James City, the upper section of York, city of Williamsburg, and they very much interact too with CW and their bus system and with William and Mary. So there are a lot of intersections and synergies that we have with WATA as a community leader. He is very much entrenched in local government work. That's where he's really served for the predominance of his career. Prior to going to Charles City County, Zach was the town manager of a little community outside Charlotte called Boiling Springs. And I love that name. And you know, you can pick up that North Carolina drawl when you all listen to him here. I love it. He is a graduate of the University of Mary Washington. He has a bachelor's in history and has a master's of public administration from the College of Charleston. So again, we're delighted that he's here. We're happy to have the opportunity to work with him. We work closely together on some issues that affect regional transit. And with that, Zach, why don't I turn it over to you? I know you've got some great information to share about the authority and the overall Hampton Roads Transit service area. So we'll put it to you, and then we'll have maybe some Q&A and some follow-up when you're completing your slide deck.
Great. Thank you, Susan, for all the kind words, and has been it's great to know you, and you can excuse me, kind of connect me with this group and everything that's going on with Williamsburg. So Cindy, I don't know if we can throw up a slideshow. What do you have to allow me to
You should be able to, Zach. Go ahead. Yeah, you should be able down at the bottom have that
I hit share
option.
screen. Okay. All right, if I hit share screen and throw my PowerPoint up, let's see. Yeah, okay, I think I got it here. Can you see anything yet?
We can.
Okay.
Oh, looks good.
Make this bigger, obviously, huh? So we'll start the slideshow. All right, we good?
We are set.
Perfect.
All right, so yeah, just real quick, I think Susan's probably seen this, the regional transit group But for those of you who may not know, actually transit in the area kind of goes back a ways, actually 40 plus years. It was James City County Transit first, which was more of a sort of client-based on-demand type thing, which, strangely enough, has come back around to a model that a lot of people are using, sort of the Uber type model before Uber was even Uber. And so that was, back in the 70s when some money was going out for community services. And so that's really where it started in this area. Became more regional in the 90s with York and the city, James City County, and the college kind of all taking advantage of it. So as it continued to grow, the General Assembly actually created the authority in 2006. So, especially in terms of public policy, we are a political subdivision, which means we, have the ability to do basically what some of the local governments do, not all the same powers, but it just gives us the ability. A lot of it was being able to apply for funding from the federal and state governments and leverage those funds. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a second too. So after a couple of years, we really began operations in 2008 with all our locality members being member jurisdictions, York, James City County, and the city of Williamsburg. And then Cologne and Williamsburg also being on, because we do work with them on some bus operations. Again, just show you sort of the extent. You see that one of our challenges is we kind of have this service area that extends long and not wide. So that can be a challenge sometimes. But we've never really strayed, even over the 30 years depicted here, and even in the 15 to 20 years since, never really strayed for some of these core routes. You still have 60, 143, going down the peninsula, and some roads crossing it, but you have the train tracks we have to deal with and things of that nature. So, some things change, some things stay the same. So some of it presents challenges, but we certainly try to keep dealing with it. Again, just showing sort of the extent of our service area right now, and sort of, the localities that we serve, the counties in the city. So again, we stretch out pretty far, try to get to those areas of the highest traffic to get people where they're going, whether it be the workforce, visitors, tourists. We want to serve them all. These are the number of fixed routes we have. So right now I marked out Surrey. We actually just ended that route. We did used to take the ferry over every day and serve some folks in Surrey. The ridership and service just hadn't really been keeping up the last several years. So we did decide, during this time when staffing is difficult, the economy's needs to recover, that it wasn't something we were going to spend funds on anymore. And the Surrey County also decided the same. They used to contribute. So again, these are the types of decisions sometimes in this environment we make. Route 14, which the trolley, that's still suspended right now, again, due to some staffing issues, but other routes are running. We've stayed fairly busy during the pandemic, have continued to provide service. Certainly we reduced some hours due to just lack of economic activity, but we stayed, pretty proportional during the whole thing, and ridership has stayed at a decent level. I talked a little bit about the funding sources. So federal funding, we probably get about 30% of our budget from that, with various programs to fund mass transit. The state, we get about 25% to help us fund operating and some capital. And then local jurisdictions, they provide money to match those federal and state grants. So that's how we are able to leverage that funding. And again, we get anywhere from, more than 50% of, some of our operating budget from these federal and state sources. So it's good to be able to leverage that funding. And that's certainly something we focus on. This is just a little look at our ridership from the past 3 years through what we proposed for 21. So you can see we suffered a drop of a couple 100,000 trips and during the pandemic. It started in 2020, spring of 2020. But it's interesting. One of our more popular programs is when you see something called ADA paratransit. That is the on-demand. We help people get to, especially if you're disabled and you can't get to the fixed route buses. We have a program that's called Origin, so they can call and schedule a ride, and we can pick them up if they can't get to the fixed route because of an eligible disability. So that program has continued to grow, and it's fantastic. Certainly we have some community service routes And so, that has continued to grow as the disabled are able to get out into the workforce, and even the elderly perhaps have a disability. So that they need to use that service. So it's a great thing, but we also have to be able to manage that and the growth in it, because it is, you can imagine, it's a little bit more costly to operate. So those are just some of the other sort of policy challenges we have as well. Other things we're doing just to kind of continuously improve is we have something I'll show you in a second. It's a mobile phone app called the Transit app that basically can be nationwide, but I think even worldwide. So providing that real-time information about where our vehicles are can help riders plan and use their time most effectively and see where the vehicle is, the time, where the bus is. So help them know what to expect. We have 2 facility projects going on, which is just part of us building our organization. One is over on Route 60, Pocahontas Trail. We purchased the facility from the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, and that's where we have our administrative offices and our maintenance facility near Riverside Hospital, if you know what I'm talking about. And so we're going to be renovating that over the next couple of years. We have a tremendous amount, of millions of dollars from the federal and states governments to help renovate that. And we're also trying to build a transfer facility in the Lightfoot area, which you see growing around the sort of the Walmart there, and commercial, and even some residential. They have some higher density residential going in there. So, that's another thing where we hope to kind of be in place as a piece of that infrastructure when these types of things come along, not an afterthought, not something that comes along after the fact when roads are built and everybody's used to driving their cars. We want to be there when people can know they can take transit right off the bat. Other things, again, are some technology pieces like route planning, just to be able to continuously look at our routes and how well they're doing, and if little tweaks can help potentially. Mobile payment is another thing. These payment options, we only really have kind of cash or buy something at the window. So it's not something on the bus. You can use kind of your mobile phone. So that's something that has accelerated a lot in the last few years. Everybody using their phone for about everything. So we're not always on that cutting edge, but we certainly want to get there and use that technology. And then just keeping our stops and our fleet vehicles up to par. Because our mission is to provide safe, economical, and efficient public transit. And so we certainly, taking care of our vehicles and such, we feel like we've accomplished that. And so we want to move on and improve in the future, but we certainly, that's been our mission over our time now, is to certainly just be a good community partner, have a good presence. And so we feel like we've accomplished that. And so we want to kind of move on to that next level, over these next few years. Here's just a snapshot of the real-time information you might see on your mobile phone, something to show where the bus is. And so the transit app, if you go to New York City, you can use a transit app. If you're in somewhere in the Midwest, you use the transit app. That'll get you hooked into the local public transportation provider. So we're on that. It's good. People visit here. They don't have to get anything new. So it's been, again, technology is just changing all the time. And so again, HRT uses it. So if you're riding our systems together, you'll know where that bus is as well. So we certainly want to be able to connect effectively with our partners down to the east. I mean, a lot of our workforce, comes from there. A lot of people here may go down there to work as well. So we want to be there for that. And there's something from the a desktop, if you were looking for the buses and stuff, which you could see from something like Google Maps or Apple Maps on your desktop. So this also hooks us into that, having that kind of data. So you can see, even if you go on the desktop, what's going on with the routes and the buses and other things. So, looking ahead over the next several years, we just want to maintain our partnerships with our local partners, folks like you all, realtors, community service agencies, the private sector, our tourism businesses, hospitality industry. Of course, we're going to be busy building the facilities and purchasing vehicles, perhaps going to some, a lot of things are moving towards electric. So we've got to be on that, in on that initiative as well, not just having the clean diesel buses like we have now. And I mentioned innovative planning and service types. Again, a lot of places are, again, things like on-demand and Uber. A lot of public transit places are trying to offer some of those in-between things where, a fixed route can't always reach out to the farthest reaches of your area, but perhaps you can have a model that you can get those folks in an effective way, sort of through some on-demand type. So we need to put that into our planning. We have a transit strategic plan coming up in over the next couple of years. So that certainly is going to be part of our planning as well. Trying to reach those areas that people don't ride or take public transit because they would have to, either a bus doesn't, a vehicle doesn't go there, or it's just too far out for us to even, for them to, they just take too much time potentially. So this may be something that can fix that. Of course, you all know about the trucking industry, perhaps that's another one in terms of challenges, staffing of all kinds of jobs, not just trucking, but all of these positions. We're having trouble getting people just like most industries. So that's going to remain a challenge. And then just keeping our ridership up. We want to continue to get choice riders, not just the people that, perhaps can't afford vehicles. We want to be there for them, but we also, certainly feel like part of our mission is to get vehicles off the road and not have everybody feel like they have to drive or just want to drive, that public transit can be a viable option. And then we're part of the political process. This is a public policy thing. So funding streams are always funny. We did have a shutdown a couple of Januaries ago that we had us a little worried about whether we were going to be able to access that federal funding that is available to us. But so certainly being part of that political process is always a concern of ours. So this is always a slide I kind of throw up at the last second that, even just having things like Uber and being able to get a convenient vehicle to come to your place, it's not always the answer. I mean, 60 vehicles, whether it be autonomous, one driver, two drivers, whatever, HOV, it's still, taking up some of that space. Sometimes physics can win the day, I think one professor was saying. So just always kind of a fun thing to put up. And that's my last slide, Cindy. That's just sort of a little basic, overview I'll give sometimes. So, otherwise, if there's any questions from that, but.
I think it's great, Zach. I know I'm a huge proponent of public transportation. If we could, get it to where it was, the time was reduced, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think your point is well taken, that I think
Right.
a lot of our citizens would take more advantage of it if they knew they only had to walk up to the top of their street or something and could within, 10 minutes. I don't know what that turnaround is.
Sure.
Do you have that study done of what is that turnaround that you think you need to get to in order to have your ridership improve or grow?
I think some of the best we can with some of our geographic challenges, again, it's going to work best sometimes, perhaps in a place where you have a nice, if you could, all these things where you're picking up or dropping off, no matter what it is, it's going to work best. Sometimes you can go up one side of the street, down the other side of the street, go a block over, something like that. So we have with the meets and bounds layout, and, some of our places, it's a little more difficult sometimes to get that. But again, there's different models potentially of providing public transit now. So they want to look for those utilizing technology as well, and also laying out our routes. So that certainly is a goal of ours. Yes, is to provide more frequent service. Perhaps just hook people into that somehow where they wouldn't have to take an inordinate amount of time, and the car is not more convenient for them. Personal automobile is not more convenient. So that's certainly a goal. Yes.
It's always convenience versus cost, right?
Correct. Yeah.
A little bit of that too. I mean, has your cost increased over the years with your growth, or have you been able to keep it a little steady?
It's been okay. I think, fuel prices are a big part of it. They haven't, until lately, obviously they're much higher now, but until lately they haven't grown too much, because that certainly is one of our big costs. Personnel continues to be, one of our biggest things, even fringe benefit costs, things like that. So we've gone up. Yeah, certainly we've increased, but we haven't seen things explode. And, unfortunately, we've also had those savings from just not filling all our positions that have allowed us to sort of operate, without being in a deficit or anything. But those are always sort of double-edged swords. But no, it's been okay, just to some of the other macroeconomic factors, I guess.
Well, one more question before I hand it back over to Susan. I just need you to tell me exactly how you pronounce your last name.
It's pretty much just how it looks, Trogdon. So
Okay.
I know there's a lot of there's nothing beyond what it just looks like. So it's kind of funny. You're definitely not the first one or the last one.
Didn't know if there was a silent letter I was missing or something, but
No,
just
no,
wanted
it's
to make sure. Well,
pretty
good.
literal there. Yeah.
That's right. So Susan, I don't know if you have some leading questions for Zach that he didn't cover. He had a great slideshow, but
Yeah, I loved that last visual with, everyone around the single bus. And, I think one of the issues that we just have as a region, whether it's WADA or Hampton Roads Transit or even Suffolk, which operates its own independent, sort of separate from HRT, separate from Williamsburg. They're just their own independent sort of unified system over there. I think one of the issues that we have in the region, and we can't help it, I mean, our geography is our geography, and it's long and spread out as you identified, and we have a lot of waterways that have to be traversed, and it for all of the major metropolitan area that we call Hampton Roads, we really in some ways lack the density to sometimes make transit as practical as it says, or as it, say it would be in Charlotte or in Los Angeles or in New York, or even in a city like Nashville or St. Louis or Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, we compete with all those cities for economic development. And one item that we often will hear from prospects is, you need a better transit system in Hampton Roads. And some of that we just cannot control because our density is not what it is in some cities. And again, we have the water. So how are you all maybe planning for some of that, Zach, where, are we looking at more transit oriented development, which actually may be a concept you want to just kind of touch on from the transit side? I'm just, we hear it all the time, is that we just don't have the system that we could have. And we're all working on that, but how are we going to maybe get to that point eventually?
Right. No, I agree. I think, certainly things like transit oriented development help. I mean, I think that's attacking it from the, geographical and density standpoint, because you're exactly right. We're still, as much as James City County and York and the city have grown, there's still, we're still not perhaps as dense as a real city would be. I mean, between the three of them, 150,000 residents or something, that's not any more than the cities down there. But certainly, yes, the sort of the development side of it, land use is a big part of it. Technology, which I've mentioned. So, because some of the things you can't overcome the challenges, but I think certainly just that technological piece is something we can depend on as well. So those are really the things we're focusing on right now, trying to make it more convenient, trying to let people know, okay, maybe we can't get you down to, a 20-minute or a 15-minute where a bus is going to come every 10 or 15 minutes right now, but perhaps you can at least look and see how you can plan for when the bus will be there and what you can get done before then or anything else. So that's sort of where we're at right now. But working with our localities and working with the region on land use is certainly a huge thing, because if you continue to build things are just spread out that that's all people can buy or want to buy, especially from the real estate standpoint, that's what you're gonna have, and so it doesn't work effectively.
Susan, can you help kind of, and again, I probably know just enough to be dangerous here, but I know it was a big legislative issue about the Hampton Roads Transit, right, and additional tax to buy more buses for Norfolk and that area. And I'm not clear. I'm assuming that WADA does get those monies funded down to them or not.
So I'll hop in here. I was actually going to bring that up. So as I mentioned, there's WADA, there's Hampton Roads Transit, and there's the city of Suffolk have, their own systems, and they interact. I mean, certainly I think more WADA to HRT, WADA could help get our riders down to, a location where they can transfer from a WADA bus to an HRT bus and go to wherever they may need to be. So in the 2020 session, back when things were normal, it seems like it was so long ago, Senator Louise Lucas from Portsmouth who is President Pro Tem of the Senate, and a then newly elected delegate who was elected in November 2019, Delegate Alex Askew from Virginia Beach, each submitted legislation that created a regional transit fee that was based on the grantor's tax, an increase in the grantor's tax, but only impacting those cities and localities that are part of the Hampton Roads transit system. So it did not include the localities in WADA. It's Newport News, Hampton, Portsmouth, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake. And it started as a 20-cent increase, and we kind of threw down a gauntlet and said, no way are we going to do that. Not when the market, is just at that time, the market was really just beginning to sort of come back and it was strengthening. And we just did not feel that, that was the right amount. We did understand that we had to at least bring something to the table. So we negotiated a 6-cent increase, and that's what ended up passing the General Assembly. And as part of that piece of legislation, now law, there was we insisted on this from the realtor community. A stakeholder group was created that will be sort of an oversight committee of how those funds not necessarily are appropriated. That goes through the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission, but the oversight committee really looking at what can we do to improve regional transit. Zach's on that committee. I'm on that committee. I think there are 60 of us or something. It's a pretty robust group. And we have a number of subcommittees, and transit-oriented development is one of them. Advocacy is one. Ridership, amenities. How do we improve the look and feel of the bus stations, of the transit shelters? Name it. How do we make it look better than it is and function more efficiently so that we can compete with Charlotte and with Maryland and other areas where we normally compete for economic development. So all of that, I guess, to say, Cindy, that unless there's something that I've misunderstood, I don't believe that WADA is the recipient of any of those funds that have been generated through the recordation tax increase in the region. And it is a healthy amount of money because the market now is so brisk. And I think, Zach, from our last meeting just a couple weeks ago, I think we were given a figure of about $30 million is in that fund right now.
I think that sounds right. Yeah. We are not. We didn't want to talk about a grantor's tax around here again. The tourism tax or whatever. I don't know if I should call it the Tommy tax. I guess that means everybody.
We all call it the Tommy tax.
Yeah,
He loves that it's called.
So yeah, we didn't need to go through a Tommy tax thing again after we've just been through it around here. So so no, you're absolutely right, Susan, that we don't. It is confusing if you try to figure it all out because we're all in the same transportation planning environment and stuff, but we are distinct systems. What I would say is that we get good local support. Our local governments around here really do help us to leverage this funding and stuff. I think they get it. And what I like to use as an analogy for our system, we're part of a transportation network, and I want us to be like infrastructure. We talk about houses being built out. What's one thing that affects a lot of things y'all do? Sewer and water. We need to be just like a sewer system that, if you run it out there, people will build perhaps more densely and things like that. But that's infrastructure that people need to potentially, live their everyday lives in a certain environment. So we certainly want to be part of that, part of that type of infrastructure. So, it's not that, we're for everybody or anything. And I always say we're not trying to get rid of cars. Europe has great transit systems, but I was in Europe for a little bit. They have plenty of cars over there. Every place has plenty of cars. So, that's not a realistic goal or anything, but certainly I think just as part of a transportation infrastructure, public transportation, WADA wants to play its role and be there for that. Just like any other public service that, perhaps your clients use and that the, local governments look to support development.
I'll throw into that, part of the outcome of the funding that's been generated through the regional transit tax, and Northern Virginia has a very similar tax, although theirs is much, much higher. One of the benefits, and I think Cindy, you had mentioned, new buses in the Norfolk region, they're really calling it the transit backbone system. So it's throughout the entire region, all the different localities that participate in HRT, both Peninsula and South Side. So it is new buses, it's upgraded routes, it's bringing in new routes, it's the payment options and the technology platforms, it's improving the shelters for riders, and not just building new ones, but actually making them appear to be something that's welcoming and does not make a rider feel, maybe a little bit frustrated that they don't have a better place to sit and wait for the next bus, that they're going to be soaking wet in weather like today. So it really is an overall transit system improvement. Really not so much operational, like it's not going to pay salaries, it's not going, for things of that nature. It's really more, like Zach said, it's the infrastructure and it's the capital cost of improving that infrastructure. So I as much as at the beginning, I think we all had heart failure at how robust the initial proposal was. Once we came down to brass tacks and really started negotiating, and as part of that negotiations made sure that this committee was put in place, I think everyone felt that they were really part of something that's going to end up being very good for the region. So
yeah. I hear a lot of talk, Susan and Zach, about dedicated bus lanes, right? That there's always talk about how can we make it more efficient, so that, I know being here on Long Hill Road, especially with the construction right now, it takes me forever to get out of the office park at night. And then as soon as I get out, there's a WADA bus sitting right there. And so I have to sit and wait, not being negative, but,
no, 2 lanes,
but,
right.
just having
Right.
that dedicated lane,
Right.
that if, or at least enough for them, I know you always at least to
pull
pull
off.
off.
Right.
Pull off, right?
Yeah, that's a good, right.
Yeah, and then crosswalks. I feel sorry for the people getting off sometimes because they're trying to walk across Long Hill Road to the 7-Eleven. And I've seen near accidents happen, right? That there's nowhere, they don't know if the traffic's going to wait for them, or, just having a dedicated crosswalk to kind of let people know that they have the right of way or not, to cross the street. But so I know that there's a huge demand for those dedicated bus lanes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That just those types of pedestrian improvements are a big factor to this, so people can feel safe. Riding those things. But
one question that I had, Zach, and it's kind of maybe hard to discern right now because the college has not actually been functioning in its normal environment. And with the students now gone, it's, I'm sure it's a different construct, but in normal times, what's the ridership from the William and Mary students? They're not allowed, at least I believe this is still true, that they're not allowed to have cars their freshman year just because there's nowhere for them to park. But is the ridership of the student body, is it strong? Is there a way to make it stronger so that they can move out and about more?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the numbers. I think it's good, but it could be better. I think we always work with the college to market it more. But you have some kids that are big advocates of it. I think, like we were talking about, we are able to run there, given the route, at least on a 30-minute frequency, which would mean you'd see the bus, same stop every 30 minutes. I think really to get the maximum benefit out of that, we probably would need to cut that down to 20 or 15 or even more. So that's a simple question of, you're going to double your cost on that. So those are things, but at the same time, we do get good ridership from there. It's a service that I think the college really needs and appreciates, so that they don't have that those logistical problems that come with it. But we need to work more closely with them to inform students. And I think they're going to take what's convenient too. And it probably needs to be more convenient than that. And we know that. It's just, again, sometimes it's sort of logistical and resource questions. So, but otherwise we have a good relationship. I mean, I will say we have a good relationship with the college. We, annually are able to partner, and so it's been good, but we always look to improve.
Yeah, well, and especially, for those students who do live off campus, I'm sure it would be an amenity and a benefit to them. But that's a tough one, especially since normal is so oddly defined right now, and maybe what will things look like when the students come back in the fall. So I don't.
A dedicated route from that new Midtown row right down to the college and back, to get you out to the Food Lion and back to, just that round circle there would be
just faster.
Yeah.
That's what the city talks about. I mean, certainly we want, look more down at a more frequent service in the city potentially. And, 30 minutes is kind of the standard. And then you kind of try to go down from there, if, just it's with resources. It's kind of a question as well. Yeah. So those
something we had talked about doing pre-pandemic, and maybe we'll be able to do it at some point, is actually have a program for our members on WADA where we would come out to you.
Yeah.
And, our members would actually have the opportunity to ride a couple of routes and sort of get a sense of what it's like. And we had done that. The Peninsula Realtors did that. It's, again, pre-pandemic, it was really an annual event where we would go down to the HRT primary office, the Rider Center, and get on the bus, and we would ride to the shipyard. And then from the shipyard, we'd ride up here to the James City County line. And, we'd have legislators with us who, sometimes they would just be picking their jaws up off the floor. Like they had no idea that it would take someone 2 hours to get to the shipyard if they lived in Denby, or if they lived right, down by James River Elementary and they got the transfer and then they ended up at the shipyard. So I think that I can't speak for our members, Cindy, but maybe again, when things are really sort of back in play, that might be a very constructive experience to create for our folks.
Sure. Yeah. At least we could offer it, right? To see if we could find a day and time that would be beneficial to everybody to try to, I know I would enjoy it. I've never ridden on WADA's buses or had that experience. So I would love, I know my husband used to try to get over to Norfolk, right? And he'd go down and drive part way and park the car and then take it through the HRBT and take it on over to Norfolk. So just again, to experience it, being a planner and trying to really understand it better, right, of what's happening. And he thought he needed to take that opportunity for a couple weeks and do it and know what the benefits and the problems were. So maybe that's what we should do, is try to, and to know, Zach, whatever we can do as an organization, if there's ever anything, any reports, any information that we would ever have that we could help you in any way, just know we're here.
Awesome.
Always happy to team with you and offer anything in our database or subdivisions. I don't know, whatever we could provide you, we're always here to help.
Well, I'll just mention one other thing, and I'm surprised Susan didn't touch on this, but we're, it's funny, we are in Hampton Roads region, but we certainly are just as sort of adjacent to, or could potentially serve Richmond. We get questions about once in a while about either the airport there or just, so I don't know where you all feel like that's going, this whole mega region thing and things like that. So that always intrigues me, because I know Susan, spends a lot of time in Richmond and has a lot of, folks up there that she knows. So it's that, that contact as well. Williamsburg always sort of being that linchpin in there. So something that's on our mind.
That's a great point, Zach. And I did kind of space on that until you just brought it up. And there has been quite a bit of talk about the mega region, and the Southern Institute of Research, John Martin at SIR, was doing some work around that, actually with President Rowe at the college. That might be an interesting dialogue to have at some point, because I think they've they've sort of completed some of the work behind it, but I'm not sure that they've actually published anything yet. But again, I think the broader rationale for considering it as a mega region from Richmond down through Hampton Roads is to be able to compete economically with some of the larger regions from across the country. So, I mean, I do think that might be a helpful discussion at some point. For your benefit, members, and maybe Cindy, something that we can tie in as we move through the summer. I know our next Public Policy Power Hour is on August 5th. And our guest will be Bob Crum, with the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. And he also is the executive director of HRTAC, the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission, that is the financial overseer of the regional transit fee and the appropriator of how those monies are dispersed with city and county leadership and with Kevin Page and with legislators who are serving on HRTAC as well. So I think that will be a really good connection to take sort of the microcosm of WADA and then watch Bob sort of expand it into the greater Hampton Roads region. And then perhaps he can even discuss, because he's certainly tied into it from his position with PDC, discuss the whole mega region concept that's sort of beginning to populate here and there.
I think that's
Go
great.
Virginia. If you remember, Go Virginia. I was
Go Virginia.
so much about that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Susan, short of that, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned to Zach that maybe it would be a good thing to tie in WADA to take us to the racetrack and back to when horse racing is in.
Oh, at New Camp? Colonial Downs?
July 19th.
Yeah. Get us to Colonial Downs and back.
Our ears are open.
That could be very cool, actually. And it's only a 6-week season.
Right. So just,
Really?
have a dedicated route for 6 weeks
Absolutely.
that takes people. They don't have to worry about driving. They can have a good time. They can have a drink.
Get Wi-Fi on the bus so you can place bets on the way there.
There you go.
Absolutely. Sports betting in Virginia is raising more money than ever anticipated.
That's right.
Oh boy.
It really, it is the gaming, the lottery board actually sent out data about that earlier this week, and it has been beyond expectations what the sports bets have done. So
Yeah. We've always wanted to have a member social out at the horse track, but we just envision people not being willing to drive. So maybe we just need to team up with you, Zach, and get a WADA bus
Like
that can take us out there.
Maybe some possibilities there,
yeah.
Fun.
I've been trying to, there's nothing I see through the chat. So we did have a comment from Suzanne saying very cool. So that's a nice positive. But yeah, even Cindy, I think after this is distributed to everybody, if questions come in, I know that Zach will be willing to answer. I'd be willing to answer. So yeah, we hope to get more people perhaps a little bit intrigued with all the different things that WADA is doing right now.
Yeah, I'd like to, just thank you all for the, support and the realization again that, all the transportation infrastructure from roads to public transit, everything is all part of the equation. So, thank you all for the support y'all give us. And this spills over to our local governments and all of the people that do support us here. And we want to honor that by continuing to improve and offering the best service we can and looking to always make that better even. So extremely important.
Yeah. We live and work in a great location, don't we? Our community and how everybody pulls together and makes everything happen. And I think we're in good hands, Zach, with you helping us try to figure out some of our local transit issues and how to help and prepare for the future as we continue to grow, because that's inevitable, right?
Public policy. It's all fun.
Yeah. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
It is. It's what makes the world go round.
That's true. That's true. As hard as it is sometimes.
Yeah.
As hard as it is.
All righty. Well, we appreciate your time, Zach. And if we do have any questions that come in when we start publishing this video to our members a little bit more broadly, I'll certainly reach out or go to Susan and have Susan reach out to you so that we can at least answer those questions and maybe put it in one of our newsletters.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Okay. All
Thanks,
right.
Zach.
All
Thanks.
right.